We're counting down 5 of the most brutal dinosaur fights scientists have ever uncovered, and each one is going to get more violent than the last. Starting off at number 1, we have Big Al, an Allosaurus who survived almost everything. When paleontologists uncovered Big Al's bones in Wyoming, they found something shocking. This wasn't your typical fossil. The skeleton is about 95% complete, and nearly every single bone on his body showed signs of injury. There were 19 separate wounds, breaks, and infections, meaning this dinosaur had lived through more violence than most predators see in a lifetime. When you look at his fossil, the bones running down his spine were cracked and mended, and even his shoulder blade was fractured. But the most brutal injury, not 1, but 5 broken ribs. Somehow Big Al survived long enough for the bones to start healing, but you can imagine the agony of trying to walk, hunt, or even stand with ribs cracked through. But how did Big Al get these broken ribs? Here's where it gets wild. Another Allosaurus specimen was found with a massive puncture hole straight through its tailbone, the unmistakable work of a Stegosaurus thagomizer. You can just imagine that moment, an Allosaurus attacking what he thought would be easy prey, only to have 4 razor-sharp spikes swing around and punch a hole clean through him. Big Al doesn't show that exact wound, but it is completely possible these injuries could have been caused by a Stegosaurus tail swipe also. And it doesn't end there, because you can clearly see bite marks, evidence that other predators have tried to take chunks out of him while he was still alive. Through all of this, Big Al kept hunting, kept fighting, kept surviving. But there was one injury his body could not overcome, and it's something you would never expect. He had been potentially impaled by giant spikes, fought off terrifying jaws, but after all of that, he broke his toe. The bone fractured and then it got infected. The infection spread, turning his toe into a swollen, painful mess that made every step agony. He couldn't hunt properly, couldn't chase prey, and of course couldn't escape danger. Scientists found Big Al's body in what used to be a dried riverbed. But you might also think scientists gave Big Al his name because he's, well, big. But it actually reflects how significant the skeleton was as a discovery at the time. It was the most complete dinosaur skeleton in the world. After living through battles with armored giants and rival predators, it was a simple foot infection that finally brought down this ultimate survivor. But one dinosaur could be even more resilient, because deep in the fossil collection sits one of the most incredible pieces of evidence ever found. It was an Edmontosaurus tailbone, and sticking right out of it was a Tyrannosaurus rex tooth. And when you look at it, it's clear that this discovery shows a hunt gone wrong, and a prey animal that just refused to go down. Scientists found 2 tailbones from this giant duck-billed dinosaur that had grown together around the tip of a T-Rex tooth. The tooth crown, about 1.5 inches long, was completely wedged between the vertebrae, and the bone had healed around it. The Edmontosaurus was alive when the T-Rex bit down on its tail. The bite was so powerful, it snapped the predator's tooth clean off, and this incredible herbivore escaped. Maybe it kicked with those powerful hind legs, maybe the whole herd came charging to help. Whatever happened, the duckbill broke free so violently that it snapped off the T-Rex's tooth like a grisly trophy. The bone scans show massive healing and new bone growth wrapped around the tooth, so it wasn't a quick process. The Edmontosaurus lived for months, maybe even years after this attack. I guess sometimes even the king of all predators could fail spectacularly. But that's nothing compared to this next dinosaur. Because at number 3, we've got the Pachyrhinosaurus, so brutally scarred that scientists nicknamed him Harvey after Two-Face from Batman. The right side of his face had a massive hole stretching from his eye socket down to his upper jaw. Bone, flesh, everything torn away. The left side of his face wasn't much better, covered in strange bony growths. What could do this kind of damage to a 2-ton herbivore? Scientists think it was a Tyrannosaurus bite. The predator's teeth punched through the bone and ripped away everything in their grip. Most animals would die from shock alone, but not Harvey. He lived with half of his face missing long after the attack, until the wound eventually closed over. New bone grew around the edges, and Harvey's face became a permanent reminder of the day he stared death in the eyes and walked away. But sometimes, dinosaurs have to fight for their lives from the moment they're born. What happens when apex predators become their own worst enemies? You get number 4 on our list. This is a young Daspaletosaurus from Alberta. 6 meters of pure tyrannosaur muscle and teeth. But when you look at his skull, you see the kind of violence that makes the other entries in this video look tame. This Tyrannosaur's enemies weren't herbivores trying to defend themselves. The skull is covered in bite marks, circular punctures, where massive teeth punched clean through the bone, chunks of skull ripped away and left gaping holes. It was fighting other Tyrannosaurs. But the scary thing is that most of these wounds actually healed. The bone shows clear healing around the bite marks and new growth trying to repair the damage. So this young Daspaletosaurus survived multiple face-biting attacks from his own kind. Scientists think they could have been dominance fights, perhaps over food or territory. Younger tyrannosaurs biting each other's faces to establish who was in charge, like crocodiles do today, but with 8-inch teeth. The scarred skull proves this Daspaletosaurus won those battles. It lived through encounter after encounter with rival predators trying to literally rip its head off. But you might be wondering about these marks right here. Well, this is where there was no healing at all, and there's a broken tyrannosaur tooth lodged into the jawbone. It's likely the fresh bite marks are from a larger predator scavenging on the corpse, which basically means after the Daspaletosaurus finally died from disease, injury, or old age, another tyrannosaur found the body and decided to have a meal. Life for a young tyrannosaur was absolutely brutal, but there's one dinosaur that went through much more than that. Fighting so many battles, she earned the nickname the Queen of the Cretaceous. This is Trix, a female Tyrannosaurus rex who lived to the incredible age of 30. In dinosaur years, that made her ancient. Scientists nicknamed her Grandma Pussface because of the infected wound that deformed her jaw. But that was just the beginning of her battle scars. Puncture marks in her lower jaw, bite wounds around her upper jaw, scratch marks that were still healing just weeks before she died. At least 4 of her ribs were broken and healed during her lifetime. Her leg bone shows twisted growth from an old fracture. Even her hip bones were damaged from injuries that went back to when she was young. Trix didn't just survive encounters with prey animals, she survived huge fights with the deadliest predator on the planet, her own kind. And the bite marks on her face show she went through some truly epic battles. Maybe fights with males during mating season, maybe territorial disputes with other rival females. Despite all of that, Trix still went on to dominate her territory for 3 decades. But the fresh scratch marks on her skull are perhaps the most telling. At even 30 years old, even after surviving everything the Cretaceous could throw at her, Trix was still getting into fights. The wounds were only weeks old when she died. This ancient queen was battling right up until the end. She was the ultimate survivor in the age of monsters. Each one of these brutal fights just goes to show that dinosaurs lived lives of constant danger, desperately trying to survive against impossible odds, right up until their final days. But if you like this video, you're gonna love checking out the videos on screen right now. We are sure you're gonna love them. Give it a click, and we'll see you there.